little spinny wheel, there was a cog. The title says scanned packet multiple times. I have never been a fan of printers. I've had computers in my home since the mid 90s, back when AOL 2.0 came on a floppy disk in the mail. And you had to use a telephone cable wire to dial up to connect. Eventually, broadband came out. We were not the first to adopt. I had several friends get it before me, so they were downloading songs off Napster in like 2 minutes or less or whatever. Speed really hasn't changed too much for broadband. I think it was 15 megabits per second down and maybe 5 up around that time. And while we have gig up and gig down, download speeds really haven't changed because the server side, um, let's use like something like World of Warcraft for an example. Um, if I have 15 down, if I have 50 down, if I have 100 down, 1,000 down, it typically will only download as fast as, Blizzard's server permits or something. I don't know if that's changed. I'm not an IT expert. I'm not a computer science major or whatever. Um, but it's my understanding, even if I have a gig internet, I'm not going to be able to download at a gig speed. It basically just means the bandwidth of my home is up to 1,000 megabits per second. So one device could be downloading at 100 megabits per second. Another one could be downloading at 100 megabits per second. I can basically have 10 devices downloading at 100 megabits per second before my bandwidth basically runs out. Um, so, but this is more about printers. I've always had issues with like downloading drivers and having conflicting things. Like printers are such a pain in the ass that for the longest time I just went without a printer. It wasn't really something I needed. Most things could be done digitally, and if I needed to print something out, maybe I send the file to my mother's computer or I just download it elsewhere. However, there was this, um, when I was in graduate school, I am currently in graduate school, um, there were some things I needed to print out and I would have to lug a printer. I did have a printer and I would have to lug it out and, connect to it even though it had wireless settings. So when I got out of prison, I wanted to buy a nice printer um, to print remotely, wirelessly. I was thinking of putting it in a closet, kind of like just like a printing room type thing. And I wanted like a high-end one, potentially spend like $1,000 on a printer so it could, have a document feeder where I could scan it and, just um, print better wirelessly. And I have gotten a fair amount of use out of the printer I just purchased, but it looks like there's a buildup of ink or something in the document feeder. Um, and while the thing has worked great so far, I've been um, very pleased with how it's worked. I just tried to scan something and the pages kept getting stuck, and I wouldn't mind, but like the pages they were printed out from the printer. And it might be a redundancy to scan them, but I just want to have a file because I can scan to a file and just have it so that that file is, it indicates all the contents of the package. So I'm going to mail this thing out. So I want the file to include everything that's in the envelope. That way, when they receive it, I can say, this is what I sent you. I fed it through a scanner before I put it into an envelope. This is what you received. And this will take place of me having an inventory list. Perhaps I will include a disclaimer that the contents of the package were scanned for compliance. And what I included in this package was 3 writing samples, a transcript, screenshots of the integrity of the writing samples document. So I actually sent 4 sets of screenshots. One was for a paper I sent previously. So that one indicates it's a screenshot that says the document was created on, modified, and it does not include the word count. But it does include the created and modified. And then there are some other screenshots related to the submission of that document. And then I had to change the order of this. So originally I had these screenshots on, top of the document that was going to be sent out, on top of the paper that it was associated with. But since it was catching, I moved the documents order in the package. But this is just to ensure that every single thing is included. So I'm going to get an envelope, and I'm going to make sure that everything was included. From what I see from the scan, everything was included. Actually, you know what? I want to hold off because I just purchased a new hat clip, and for my DJI Osmo Nano, where I could, put a clip and record this thing for compliance. I'm a little disappointed in some of the color scans. Um, it's clear, it's legible what I want included, but I don't know why it's kind of, fuzzy. Maybe I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is the scan. This is a screenshot to show the integrity of this document that says, "Who am I?" And over here it says, created Tuesday, October 8th, 2024 at 11:35 p.m. Modified Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 at 11:01 p.m. And you can see that the screenshot was taken Saturday, October 26th, October 26th at 6:53 a.m. And this is another one just indicating the same thing, just to show a little bit more text. So this is the title page, this is the first page of the text, and then this is just, this is what happened to the module. So when I submitted this assignment, we got this error that this assignment is not part of an, this assignment is part of an unpublished module and is not available yet. So I submitted it, I got the confetti, and then I saw in my WhatsApp group chat that people were having issues with the document. So this screenshot was taken October 10th at 5:08 p.m. And here is Canvas showing that the document was submitted. It's My Vision of Counseling. If we go back to this document here, it says that the thing is saved under My Vision of Counseling, and it's saved under location users, Joya, SK, PhD, /desktop, /PhD, /MISC. So that's the folder that's in. Here's the file size. It's 29.2 kilobytes. And you can see here that a document was uploaded, My Vision of Counseling, October 9th, and the size is 29.21 kilobytes. And what I did was I took the, so here's another screenshot where you see one says My Vision of Counseling -1. So what I did was this screenshot was taken where this is edited in a way. So here's the original screenshot, and you can see that it says My Vision of Counseling, and this was taken at 6:08 p.m. on October 29th. And then this one was taken this one. So this one was taken where it says My Vision of Counseling -1. This was taken October 29th at 6:18 p.m. and you can see that says October 29th. So what I did was I uploaded this. This was already uploaded to Canvas, so I resubmitted it from Canvas. I did not upload it from my local. So it was Canvas to Canvas, not my hard drive, and this original one was from my local to Canvas. This one was Canvas to Canvas. So I included that. Then I included here, I have this 7510. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then this is another one, Bias and Media. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And you can see here, this one is data integrity for the 7510, where this was created October 4th, 2023 at 4:12 p.m. and then modified Sunday, October 8th, 2023 at 8:13 p.m. It was worked on for 561 minutes. It had 34 revisions. These are the pages, paragraphs, lines, word count, characters. So this is that first document that was 7 pages. And this is the same one where it shows that it comes from my local location users Joya SK PhD /desktop /PhD PSY 7510 social psychology. It is 24.5 kilobytes. And here are the submission created Wednesday, October 4, 2023 at 5:48 p.m. and modified Sunday, October 8th, 2023 at 8:13 p.m. Why is that different? So the properties, I mean, like I can open this document right now, and in fact, let me do that. So this is the paper right here, and if I go to properties, we can't see the properties. Let me just do full screen. We got the properties here. Let me just show you that it's from this document. So here it says October 4th, 2023 at 5:48 p.m. And then under statistics, it says October 4th at 4:12 p.m. The modified date, the modified time is the same. I'm wondering why there's a discrepancy though in that thing here. So anyway, we'll just go down to the next one. Then this is bias in the media, and this one is 13 pages. Was that one that we had up here? Just making sure, because the other one I'm pretty sure it is. So this is bias in the media, and we see that is 13 pages. And we see that it was created Sunday, October 22nd, 2023 at 1:04 a.m. It was modified Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 1:11 a.m. and took 633 minutes. So you know, not too much longer for you know, a paper that's double in length. You can see that's 13 pages, and it is 3,435 words, and here's just more data integrity. So the time created 1:04 a.m. This one says that it was created at 3:33 a.m. and the modified date is at 1:11 a.m. So the modified date is still the same. Maybe we'll contact Microsoft and ask why that does that. And you can see that it was saved to a local of users, Joya SKPhD /desktop /PhD /PSY 6010 multiculturalism. And then we have this literary synthesis on sexual trauma research. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the pages look a little slanted. But then we have the document for that, and that's actually saved to this external drive that I have currently hooked up, and it's volumes one touch slash downloads. It was created Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 at 10:37 p.m. and it was modified Monday, March 21st, 2022 at 12:04 p.m. Then the statistics on it, it looks like it took 1,817 minutes to do 10 pages, 2,513 words. The created time is March 19th, 2022 at 3:56 p.m. And that's a full day difference for the created. Again, I can just pull up that document. If I go to Open Recent, we have this is the literary synthesis, and go to the properties. It says that it was created Wednesday, May 18, 2022 at 10:37 p.m., but then under statistics, it says it was created Saturday, March 19, 2022 at 3:56 p.m. And I don't know what this author thing is. I don't know if that's the, because this one has comments on it. But these scans look pretty good. I included these data integrity things because there are typos where the reason why I included these is I said, I wanted to demonstrate that my writing was basically the same at Saybrook as it was at Seton Hall. And so I kept there are some errors, there are some grammatical errors and some spelling errors in these papers. They're fairly minor and they're not too common, but they do exist. And I just wanted to maintain the integrity of the document where I didn't modify these things and say, see, look, my writing was the same, and meanwhile, like I, edited it, now or something. So I maintained the data integrity. This is how it was submitted when I was attending Saybrook, and that includes any spelling errors or typos. There are some, I didn't use the Writing Center. My first semester, we had to use the Writing Center. So it was part of my career, it was part of my course in developmental psychology. We had to set meetings with the Writing Center, but later on, you see that it takes me about a day or two to write some of these papers. There's some that I work on longer, but at this point in my progress in my PhD, at this point in my curriculum, I was pretty efficient at writing these things. So I knew how long it would take me. So if I were to schedule a Writing Center meeting, I would, let's say it's due, so the data integrity on this thing is that it was modified October 8th at 8:13 p.m. So let's say it was due Sunday, October 8th at, at midnight or something. So I would need to have it had completed, maybe a week before. So it would have been maybe October 1st that I would have had to set up a writing center meeting to work on this so I could get feedback from the writing center so I could, correct any errors or whatever, have it revised by the writing center. And they'll basically just go through it and correct, like, there's no reason why you should have any APA, any deductions and points for APA style or whatever, because you can use the writing center and they'll catch the errors before you submit the paper. Um, Part of my writing is I had more citations. The more I read, the more courses I took, the more citations I had. Where, like, if I'm doing a paper on cognition and we're doing something related to memory lapses due to trauma, I can refer to other sources. And so I just have more information that I can pull from where I say, oh, I know where I can get a quote to support this or something. Um, The other thing, I think my writing improved after my first semester, where I was more concerned just about making sure that everything was cited. Um, Not that I got A's. um, my first couple papers, I didn't. Those are ones that I wouldn't use as writing samples. But this literary synthesis came from my first semester, and I got an A in that course. But I don't. Um, 2 points here, 2 points there. um, the writing, there's nothing that I say, like this is stellar. I'm going to publish this. I think the one I sent, I sent a couple. This one on social psychology. It's the reason this was originally just going to be the sample that I sent, and after I read it, there are a couple of spelling errors, um, and there's maybe one or two um, what you call grammatical errors, and some of the grammatical errors are like typically it'll be like if a sentence starts with it was this blah blah blah, it might have a T omitted, so it might say I blah blah blah, and so it might not be picked up by grammar check. I don't know why this some of these things that are clearly indicated by um, there's one that says like information, and information is spelt information is spelt incorrectly, but it's used twice in the sentence. So I think it's in the bias in media paper, and see, like it says, heuristics may bias our interpretations of information by omitting relevant this should be information, and it wasn't picked up by the spell check thing, and keeping our focus on irrelevant information. But anyway, so I was originally just going to include this one paper, but the thing about it's just basically a literary review of one source. So this Wannick article, "Are COVID-19 Conspiracies a Threat to Public Health?" And then I use a textbook that we had for the course, and then one other research article, and this one's like a foreign one. This is like an Italian thing, and so it was sound structurally and grammatically, and it is informative. It is not, it's just factual. But after reading it, I felt that it's just kind of just like a literary review of one source. So I wanted something to focus on multiple sources. So I look for something. I know there's one. There's one paper that I have that has like 16 sources or something, and this should be. I don't want to delete it, but this should be deleted one. This should be brought up here. But I thought this one was good because it uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 citations. I think I have some with more. I'm certainly fond of my Takasuba cardiomyopathy one, but the problem with that one is it was torn apart grammatically, so I didn't submit it to the Writing Center. So there were a lot of APA violations, formatting errors. If I fix those formatting errors, it's like a 98 paper or something. The other thing is so I pulled from multiple sources, and one was about recurrent Takasuba cardiomyopathy in a case of like hypothyroidism or hypothyroidism, and they use statistics, and when it comes to some of these things, I don't want to just quote the entire article, so I included things, but I guess my selection process is it seems kind of arbitrary, what statistics I choose to include and not to include. So I don't want to include that. Um, and I don't really like that paper, and because I lost in an attempt to keep an open-ended question. Originally, it was kind of like a sliding scale of what are the possible outcomes of severing strong attachments, and I framed it. What happens when a loved one sees or hears the news of a loved one getting raped, and could they have no reaction? Could they become depressed? Could they start engaging self-mutilatory behaviors? Could they start tearing their hair out and cutting themselves and purging? Could they start losing their hair just out of stress? Could they experience Takasuba cardiomyopathy? And but to frame it, the way the professor wants, I omitted all that, and it just became, what are the consequences of Takasuba cardiomyopathy? And the information basically, 70% of Takasuba cardiomyopathy cases present with a catecholamine surge, to the point where I said, is this catecholamine-induced cardiomyopathy rather than stress, rather than broken heart syndrome? So things like cocaine might have a catecholamine surge, and that's kind of where I went in some of the directions. And there actually is an alcohol-induced cardiomyopathy. So I don't know why they didn't, identify this as its own thing. And then I went to a lecture in Pasadena, and a person was giving a presentation on perinatal conditions. And I asked them, I said, when I was researching this paper, I looked up abortions and like, what is the incidence of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy with abortions? But I said abortions didn't populate, but cesarean sections did. And so my question was to her was it the stress of the surgery? Was it the physical thing related to the Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or was it the emotional component? And like, how would you be able to tell the difference? And so I guess I want to know like what are the emotional aspects that cause Takotsubo cardiomyopathy? And like one of the meta-analysis of the Takotsubo cardiomyopathy spoke about there was one case where a man had Takotsubo cardiomyopathy after his wife divorced him and she took like the house and stuff. So there were a lot of things where he lost all his stuff in the divorce. So I don't know if that presented with catecholamine surge, but it certainly seems to be emotionally uh, created. An incidence of broken heart syndrome. So I'm going to prepare this package to make sure that this goes out. Also included in this is my transcript. So it says 15 of 60 pages. I brought you down to past the so page 57 is my transcript. So I'm not going to show you that. And the first page is a letter to the person I'm sending this to. So I showed you page 2. No, I showed you page 3 because page 2 is still part of the letter. And some of these blank things, I have it double-sided. So this paper is page 1 here is the cover, and then page 2 is on the back of page 1 here. It's to conserve paper. You can see I misspelled achievements here. I before E, except after C. I decided I audited a course at a community college on sociology, and was at a community college, and so the professor is saying things like "I before E, except after C," and I felt like she was talking down to her students, and I said, and like, like I felt bad for them, and that's probably something I learned in grade school and was reinforced in high school. Um, there are exceptions to that rule, I before E, except after C. Um, there was so much snow that winter that I just stopped going to those classes.